Long before the Great Flood cleansed the earth of corruption, there existed a hidden and accursed realm, a barren wasteland known as Dudiel. This desolate land served as an eternal prison for the rebellious Watchers, the angels who had forsaken their heavenly duties and defied the will of the Most High. It was a place of torment, where the fallen were bound in chains of divine fire, their once radiant forms now twisted by their own corruption. Amidst the swirling ash and jagged stones of Dudiel stood Enoch, the righteous scribe chosen by God to bear witness to the fate of the condemned. Before him loomed the Archangel Uriel, his presence both awe-inspiring and sorrowful. Though Uriel's face shone with celestial light, his eyes were heavy with grief, for he had been entrusted with delivering the judgment of heaven upon those who had strayed from the path of righteousness. Here, in this forsaken place, Uriel declared, his voice resonating through the wasteland, shall dwell the angels who defiled themselves with the daughters of men. Their spirits, once pure, have become as twisted as the idols they inspired mankind to worship. They have sown corruption upon the earth, leading mortals astray, teaching them forbidden arts, and demanding sacrifices that belong to the Almighty alone. Enoch's heart ached at the words. He had seen the devastation wrought by the Watchers, how they had seduced humanity with promises of power, how they had turned men's hearts from worship of the true God to the veneration of false idols. The world had been poisoned by their influence, and now, at last, justice was being served. Yet Uriel was not finished. His voice softened, weighed down by sorrow, as he spoke the fate of those who had joined themselves to the fallen. And the women, he said, those who wed the Watchers in defiance of divine law, they too shall bear the weight of judgment. They shall be transformed into sirens, cursed to wander the seas and the desolate places of the earth, their beauty turned to terror, their voices instruments of ruin. Enoch shuddered. Sirens? The word was unfamiliar, yet it carried with it a sense of dread. Uriel nodded gravely. Their songs shall be laments, filled with sorrow and longing, yet irresistible to mortal ears. They will draw men to their doom, just as they themselves were once drawn to the Watchers. Their punishment is eternal, for they too abandoned their purpose and embraced the forbidden. In the days before the flood, when the Watchers first descended from the heavens, they were beings of unimaginable splendor, tall as ancient cedars, radiant with celestial light, their voices like the music of the stars. The daughters of men gazed upon them with wonder, and the Watchers, in their pride, took them as wives. Among these women was one named Lilith, whose beauty was unmatched beneath the sky. Her hair was as dark as the void between stars, her eyes like twin flames, and her voice as sweet as the song of morning birds. She was the first to be claimed by Samiza, the mightiest of the fallen host, who whispered promises of eternal love and power beyond mortal comprehension. Lilith, entranced by his splendor, left behind the world of men and became his bride. In time, she bore him children, monstrous giants known as the Nephilim, whose hunger for violence and bloodshed knew no bounds. But with each birth, Lilith felt the light within her dim. The secrets Samiza shared with her, the hidden knowledge of heaven, twisted her soul, filling her with visions of ruin and despair. For years, the earth groaned beneath the weight of the Watchers' sins. The Nephilim waged war upon mankind, and the knowledge of the fallen spread like a plague, turning men's hearts from God. At last, the heavens could endure no more. The archangels descended in wrath, led by Uriel himself. The Watchers were seized, their power broken, and they were cast into Dudiel, bound in chains that could not be broken. Their wives, however, were left behind, grieving the loss of their celestial lovers, unaware that their own punishment was yet to come. One evening, as Lilith stood upon the shore of a vast and restless sea, the sky darkened, and Uriel appeared before her. His wings blazed with holy fire, his eyes filled with both pity and judgment. "Lilith," he said, his voice like the crashing of waves, "your union with the Watchers has brought ruin upon the earth. Your children are abominations, your knowledge a curse. For this, the Most High has decreed your fate." Lilith fell to her knees, her tears mingling with the salt of the sea. "Mercy, great Uriel. Have we not suffered enough?" But Uriel's expression did not soften. "The path you chose was forbidden. Now you must walk its end. You shall become a siren, cursed to roam the waters for all eternity, your voice a song of sorrow and destruction. Just as you were ensnared by the promises of the fallen, so too shall you ensnare the hearts of men." Before she could plead further, agony consumed her. Her legs fused into a shimmering tail, her skin took on the sheen of scales, and her voice, once sweet and gentle, became a haunting melody, filled with the sorrow of lost love and the bitterness of betrayal. Around her, the other wives of the Watchers writhed in torment as they too were transformed, their cries echoing across the waves. From that day forward, the sirens wandered the seas, their voices carrying across the waters like a mournful wind. Sailors who heard their songs were entranced, their minds clouded by visions of unearthly beauty, their ships drawn inexorably toward jagged rocks and crushing waves. Yet the siren's song was not merely a weapon, it was a lament. They sang of the love they had once known, of the celestial beings who had whispered promises in their ears, of the children they had borne and lost. Their voices held the weight of eternity, a sorrow so deep that no mortal could fathom it. Lilith, the first and greatest of the sirens, sang the loudest. Her voice rose above the others, a dirge for all that had been lost. She longed for the day of final judgment, when the chains of her curse might at last be broken. Enoch, still standing in the wasteland of Dudiel, listened as Uriel spoke the final decree. "Here they shall remain," the archangel said, "until the day of the great judgment, when they shall face the final reckoning and their torment shall cease." Enoch bowed his head, tears staining the barren earth. "Is there no hope for them?" Uriel's gaze softened slightly. "Hope is not mine to give or deny. The judgment of the Most High is just. Yet even in wrath, there is purpose, and in the end, all things shall be made right." With these words heavy upon his heart, Enoch departed Dudiel, the cries of the fallen and the sirens' mournful songs echoing in his soul. He would record all he had seen, so that future generations might remember the cost of defiance. Beneath the earth, hidden from mortal eyes, lay Tartarus, a prison for the most terrible of beings. Few knew of its existence, but Uriel walked the earth unseen, his mission to ensure its horrors remained contained. Yet in the depths of the Euphrates, in the forgotten reaches of Dudiel, for mighty angels lay bound in chains of divine fire. Unlike the loyal servants of heaven, these were beings of wrath, held in wait for an appointed hour of destruction. For centuries, they remained imprisoned, their presence unknown to mankind. But at last, the time came. The voice of the Lord thundered across the heavens, commanding the sixth angel to sound the trumpet. Release the 4 angels bound at the great river Euphrates. The trumpet's blast shook the earth. The sky darkened as the ancient chains shattered, and the 4 angels rose, towering, wrathful, their eyes burning with hatred for the world that had forgotten them. The first wielded a sword of shadow, his laughter chilling the air. The second bore a bow of flame, his wings blotting out the sun. The third carried chains of molten iron, his gaze as cold as the abyss. The fourth, wreathed in smoke and fire, brought death with his breath alone. Unleashed upon the earth, they brought devastation, war, plague, and fire consuming a third of mankind. The heavens wept ash, the earth groaned, and those survivors cried for mercy, the time for repentance had passed. When their wrath was spent, the 4 angels returned to the Euphrates, their task complete. The world lay in ruins, its people mourning, yet some remembered the warning, to turn from evil before the final judgment arrived. And so, the earth waited, caught between the echoes of past ruin and the shadow of what was yet to come. Thank you for watching.